Hello and welcome to Cycling Safety Tips for Riding in Groups. I am Chris and this is Michael and we're from the Endurance Edge and we are here to make sure that you are having some fun on your bike.
Yeah, and being safe.
Yeah. All right, so let's jump right in.
All right. So obviously there's our safety basics that we always want to do whenever we are riding our bikes. So just make sure you're always wearing a helmet, especially in a group. You're just like statistically the chances of crashing increase. So make sure you're wearing a helmet. Making sure your bike's in good shape. That's just like a general rule of thumb for riding your bike. Before you roll out the door, just make sure your brakes work, make sure that your wheels are tight, stuff like that.
And a note on helmets, sorry to go backwards, but just give it a look over and make sure that there's no cracks.
Yeah.
If it's like 10 years old, y'all, come on. Like,
yeah.
You need a new one.
Actually,
it's time.
I saw something pretty recently about, I don't remember which helmet manufacturer it was. I want to say it was like Giro or Bell maybe, but they said helmets need to be replaced every like 3 or 4 years, even if you haven't wrecked, because like the foam and stuff breaks down over time. Anyways.
Yeah.
And
so
especially being exposed to UV
sweater,
and stuff. Yeah.
Heavy sweater. I've had people who squish their helmet and it just literally just comes down. Like, just inspect it. Make sure it's okay, especially if you're tossing it in or your car. Like, make sure you got a good helmet. And you don't have to spend $1 bajillion on these things. Like, it just has to be on the inside. There's a little sticker that says it's rated.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And just like, I think it's one of those things just plan to replace it every few years like you do with, it's like a regular maintenance thing, like you buy new shoes every so often, like same thing. Just make sure you're buying a new helmet every once in a while.
Tell us about the brake check. Like, how do we do that?
Yeah, so the best thing to do there is like actually before you get on your bike or throw your leg over your bike, but just grab both the brakes and then rock your bike forward and back and you'll feel if the brakes are engaging. So that's really just to make sure like, hey, someone didn't go by and like flip your quick release open and now the brake pads don't contact.
Right.
Because the last thing you want is to like go rolling down your driveway and there's a car coming and your brakes don't work.
Yep, that's a problem.
So
I've had a lot of athletes who are afraid to use their front brake. What do you say to that?
I say don't be afraid to use your front brake.
It's super powerful.
That's actually I got some advice from a guy who was like a 12-time world and national masters cycling champion for racing like criteriums. That was like 70% of your braking should be with the front brake.
Wow.
So you get a lot more power out of your front brake and just like provides more stopping power. So don't be afraid to use it, but along with that, don't just grab a handful of only front brake. Yeah. Because that's kind of a recipe for disaster. But definitely don't be scared to use it. It's just about modulating the two brakes.
Yeah. And then what else we got? Making sure your wheels are on tight.
Yeah, make sure your skewers are tight. You know, the last thing you want is a skewer to be open and a wheel to come bouncing out or something.
That would be bad.
Yeah. So just basic things. I mean, that one, you can look down and see if your skewer's closed, and you can kind of just like grab like your stem and your front wheel and just like rock the two and see like if your wheel's loose or something.
Okay. Tires. So talk about this. We've got both. So I'm more mountain bike and we have a lot of road triathletes and road cyclists. So talk about the difference between those two. How should you check tire pressure? And then it happens to be July here in North Carolina and it's freaking hot. So talk about hot and wet too. Like what kind of conditions?
So it's easy enough to check tire pressure every single ride. So just check every ride is honestly the easiest thing.
Do you check it with a gauge or are you just like?
I use the pump gauge, on my pump. Cause I even if you're riding every single day, it loses a couple of PSI overnight, which, not huge, but it's easy enough to hook the pump up before you go ride and just put like one pump of air, to top it off. But especially for like mountain bikes or cyclocross, grip and like traction is really pretty closely tied to tire pressure. So I would say for either of those, it's a good idea to check your tire pressure every ride just to make sure it's dialed in and right for the conditions.
So road, or I should say triathletes are generally pumping their tires to their maximum PSI.
Right. Don't do that.
Tell us why.
Okay. So that's actually like pretty old school thinking that like higher pressure is faster, and that's like super antiquated and for road anyways, for like out in normal conditions. So like if you're on like a perfectly smooth glossy velodrome,
where does that
in
a velodrome.
So like if you're out on like a perfectly smooth glossy velodrome, higher pressure is better because it's just like a hard thing like that you're rolling around like just like perfectly smooth. But what we've actually found like as an industry in recent years is that lower tire pressure within reason is faster out on the road. because what you find is that a little bit lower pressure. So like for a road tire, like a normal 23 or 25C road tire, a pressure of like in the 90s to like max 105 really is faster because the tire actually deforms to bumps better. So you're getting more constant power transfer. Whereas if you're riding like that 110, 115, 120, or like, you know, you still hear some like old school triathletes riding 140 PSI in their tubulars. Yeah, what you're actually doing is like as you go over bumps in the road, you're just bouncing along. So you're getting really poor power transfer. It's really inefficient.
And it's fatiguing.
And it beats you up.
Yeah. By like a lot. So what about differences in sizes? Like, so let's say we have Joe, who's a 250-pound cyclist, versus, you know, Sally, who's 120 pounds.
Yeah, so I mean, definitely bigger riders, you know, you probably want to choose like a bigger tire. It's just more contact area. It's going to be a little more forgiving and kind of hold the weight a little bit better. But even outside of that, especially now, like the way the industry's gone, like wheels have gotten wider in the last 10 years, I would say. And so a wider tire is going to be a little bit more aerodynamic and faster from that perspective, but it's also more comfortable. So, you know, you look at like a lot of the common race wheels nowadays, like Indies, Zips, head wheels, Vision wheels, they're all a much wider wheel than in the past. And so like a 25C tire is actually pretty optimal for those. So assuming that you have clearance in your frame for a wider tire is going to be more comfortable, more aerodynamic, and faster.
I know we're not necessarily pushing brands here, but do you have any brand specific suggestions or seen like certain ones that have higher wear or just do better?
Tires are tough. It's very much about like what you're looking for. Like if you're looking for a tire that's really flat resistant, there's obviously going to be a very different tire for that than like a pure speed tire. You know, I think kind of balancing both worlds, like the Continental GP 5000, it's the new version of the GP 4000, is a good balance. It's got a little bit of flat protection, but it's really still just a fast race tire. But it is have enough flat protection that you can kind of ride it more. Something like Specialized Turbo Cottons, they're like literally a cotton tire, like 300 threads per inch, like super supple.
And you could sleep in them.
Yeah, like super fast.
On the thread count.
But there's just like they're not a lot of flat protection there.
Yeah.
So you know, if you're not comfortable changing flats, that may not be the tire for you.
Yeah. Do we talk about that, changing flats?
Yeah. So we'll circle back to some of that too.
Yeah,
but
that's important.
Yeah.
Stay tuned.
Yeah. We'll cover that later.
Yeah.
I don't want to get ahead of ourselves.
So light it up. This is huge.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of like daytime running lights in your car. It reduces accidents. Same exact thing on your bike. And when I see people not running with lights, it drives me crazy, because just the way that the sun can come down and like create glare as a driver, it makes the cyclist kind of disappear.
Yeah, well, I think there's like, it's big now. I mean, people are concerned about cars. It's like an increasing concern, especially in our area. You know, traffic's getting worse. It's getting busier. And we see a lot of people buying like gravel and mountain bikes and cross bikes and stuff because they want to ride like an Umstead or Crabtree and stuff and like get off the road, but they can still want to ride their bike. But, you know, getting lights is like a huge thing you can do to increase your visibility and make things a little safer. I think it was Clemson and Bontrager and like Trek did like a big research study, basically found that like even during the daytime, lights like hugely improve your visibility and decrease your risk of getting in a car accident.
Yeah. There is North Carolina law that when it is low light, so like if you're, I know a lot of people who cycle at like 4 o'clock in the morning because they know the traffic's going to be lighter. Keep in mind, that's when you're going to have the drunks on the road, so just be careful about that. But when it's either dark or low light, so, you know, evening time, you are required to have a red light on the rear that's visible from at least 200 feet, and then same, a white light on the front. So be sure that you have both, just not like a little tiny blinky.
Right.
I had my blinky, like, you know, like light it up. It's important.
For sure. And this is like one of those things where like, because it is like a safety thing, it's worth spending a little bit of money. And like, honestly, it's just an easy thing. Like most of the lights nowadays are pretty small. They're pretty bright. You can just leave them on your bike all the time. You just have them there in case like a rainstorm blows through and like it gets super overcast. Like, it's just.
And just be sure you're charging them too. If because a lot of these lights are charges. Okay, let's get to the fun stuff. So riding in a group, a lot of the pro of riding in a group, and I totally recommend this even for triathletes who are like, oh, you know, I race by myself. Like, definitely learn a Paceline. It's huge. Okay, so we're gonna jump into that. So what types of Pacelines?
Yeah, so there's a few different Pacelines, but I kind of want to go back to something you said about like a lot of triathletes are like, well, I race by myself, you know, I can't ride in a group in a race, so I might as well do all my training alone. But it's almost like the idea of like motor pacing, where you like follow a vehicle around at like a faster speed. Mm-hmm. So like by riding behind someone that's more efficient, they break like the wind for you. Yeah. Not to make fart jokes,
but we should.
But so it is more efficient. You can go faster, so it gives you a chance to ride at like a faster pace and like get some of that like pacing in your legs.
Yeah. And it's just generally a good skill to have. Like you have to have quick reaction times.
Good big bike handling skills.
Absolutely. So it's critical because I know so many triathletes who have the worst bike handling skills. And like, you know.
I know some bad cyclists too. And like all of the racing is done in groups.
Really ruined triathletes on the bus. Sorry, y'all. Really like you. Anyway, okay, so single Paceline, here's one option.
So this is like your most simple, traditional form of a Paceline that you'll see. You know, this is where typically a smaller group that you've got, like somewhere between like 5 and 10 riders, will go out and you just ride one behind the other in a straight line. As you start to get bigger groups, we kind of change and look at different types of Pacelines. But, you know, for a smaller group, or if like the road's really crazy busy, typically groups will split up into like a single Paceline or like narrow out to the single Paceline. But
that's smarter from a traffic standpoint. So put yourself in the shoes of a driver. I mean, I know probably the majority of you guys drive a car. When you are coming up on something that, let's say it's a tractor, it's traveling much slower than you are, it's easy to pass them because they're roughly the length of several bicyclists. So think of putting yourself as cyclists into a short enough Paceline that you don't create this huge train that the car has to go so distinctly outside and pass you in this huge line, and then potentially putting themselves at risk, the car who might be in the opposing lane, and you guys at risk. So if you can keep yourself condensed in this type of a Paceline, it's just ideal from a safety perspective.
But again, that's within like, you know, like if you have less than like 10 people, you know, as you start to get more people, like if you have 20 people in a single Paceline, that extends for like a very long period of time.
And so they're like 2 bus lengths.
Right. Drivers are having to pass you for a really long way. And there's like a lot of like backcountry roads that people tend to ride on, like a lot of curves and stuff. And so like they don't have big gaps where they can see for a really long way. And so then they start to take risks to pass a really long line of people. So again, like as we go and advance on, so as we like start to get into those bigger groups, we typically transition over to like a double Paceline. So that's just 2 single Pacelines right next to each other. And then what you'll see is as you're done with your pull at the front, both of those people like rotate off around the outside, which I don't have a drawing of. So this is, so yeah, it's really just 2 single Pacelines stuck together. And then when the 2 front people will rotate off at the same time and come back. But then we move into a rotating Paceline, which is what this is. Yep. So the next progression of the Paceline is the rotating Paceline. So what you'll have is essentially a line of cyclists that are moving forward and then a line of cyclists that are moving back. And it's just continuously rotating around. You're taking very short pulls. It's very like smooth and steady. Like when you get to the front and pull off, you're not sitting up, you're not stopping pedaling. You just ease off the gas just a little bit. We're talking like 0.5 mile an hour, 1 mile an hour. You rotate over and then you kind of come back. And then when it's your turn to pull over, you go ahead and just slide behind that person. And then you accelerate. It's 0.5 mile an hour, 1 mile an hour. And it just continuously rotates. And in really large groups, what you'll sometimes see is like it break up into maybe 10 to 15 people, maybe 20 rotating. And then you'll see a double Paceline form behind them with people that don't really want to rotate and they just want to kind of sit there.
Yeah. So how would you communicate this? Because I have, if you guys can see my arrow, what a lot of people will do is they will peel off the back.
Right. So that's what we want with a double Paceline. So I can control the arrow if you guys, hopefully you guys can see this. So with a double Paceline, what you'll see is these 2 front people, they'll peel off like that, and they'll just go along both sides and drift back. But with a rotating Paceline, what we're seeing is like this, we'll call this bike 1. They'll rotate over to we call it the slow lane. And then this whole line of people is drifting backwards because they're going just a little bit slower than the other. And then you'll rotate over and kind of accelerate to match. And then you're kind of drifting up. And then you're at the front, you take your short pull, and it's just a very fluid, smooth circle.
At any point are you braking?
No, you should not be braking. So that's the other piece of this. So this is a much more complicated, it's a very fluid, it takes a lot of like precision and timing for it to be right. It's a more advanced technique, I would say, but if you go out on group rides, it's very possible that something like this is going to occur, so it's good to be familiar with. There's a lot of timing things that, again, are very intricate and like complicated, like timing cues for when to rotate off and when to rotate back in and stuff. But the whole point is for it to be fluid. So when you rotate off, you're not braking, you're just easing up off the pedals just a little bit. And then when you get to the back, you just move over and accelerate back up. There shouldn't be a whole lot of braking. There shouldn't be really hard accelerations. It should be just like a very fluid and smooth thing.
So keep that in mind, you guys, because I see all the time that front rider especially will like hit the gas.
Yeah. And
just thinking like, oh gosh, everybody's following me. And that's, you know, then you kind of screw up the whole.
Yep. Or by the time you get there, you're super excited and you're just like, you're feeling good. You want to take a good, strong pull. And that kind of falls under like the etiquette, which we'll talk about in just a second. That kind of falls under the group etiquette. It's not really like a hard spoken rule or anything. Someone might say something to you if you go out to a ride and do that. Sometimes they won't, but that's kind of like a no-no, is not to do that, because what you end up doing in the process is if this person takes a big hard pull, this person that just pulled off you're not moving over in front of them, so they're not getting the rest that they want. And then this person behind you is going to then, if you're going faster, having to like go even faster to come around you. And so it kind of screws up the whole dynamic.
Everybody's got to have equal levels of testosterone.
Yeah.
In other words.
Yeah.
Like,
and it's one of those things.
Chill.
Be patient. Just like the point is not to take too hard pulls and then burn yourself out. The point is to be able to sit there and rotate with the group for a long time. And
you can easily go way faster this way than you can by yourself or in a single pace line.
Yeah.
It's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
And when it's working,
it's a beautiful thing.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
So definitely see if you can find some people who are of relatively similar fitness levels and experiment with this.
And this is one of those things that's good, like especially if you have like a close group of friends that you train with. Like if you get even 5 people out, you can kind of practice this at low speed just to kind of get the idea for it. And then you can kind of work your speeds up and stuff. But I would say, less than 5 people, this isn't worthwhile, because your rest to work ratio is like so poor that you're like working the whole time.
Yeah.
So it's really like, I would say like 10 people or more, you start to see this come into play.
Right. Cool. Okay. So that was Pacelines.
So then specifically for those, for the single and double Pacelines, when you're pulling through, you just want to make sure that you're matching the speed of the group. That's just like a consideration for other people. Like if the group is going 21 miles an hour, when you get to the front, don't make it 25 miles an hour or don't make it 14 miles an hour. Just like try and match what the group is doing. Same thing goes for like length of pull. Like if people are sitting on the front and pulling for about a minute, plan to be there for about a minute. And then just be steady. Don't surge. Don't do anything real sporadic or crazy. Just be steady.
I think some of the challenges I see within Pacelines is an interesting level of communication.
Yeah.
So there are some people, and I know you're.
I'm gonna talk about this.
Yeah. So some people just have to like. There's a nice place in terms of communication so that everybody is not trying to freak out all the time. There's some riders who point out everything.
Yeah.
When you're pointing out every single pothole, the riders behind you are trusting you in the front. So they are following your wheel. So you have to be the trusted one in front to go around a pothole. You don't have to point it out, because the more you're pointing at things, the more the other riders are directing their eyes, and that moves your wheel. The more you move your head, you're moving your wheel too. So, communication is an interesting thing. So
communication is key, especially with that. And that's the other thing. Thank you for mentioning that. That's the other thing. Is like when you're in a pace line, you can only see so far in front of you because you're usually right on someone's wheel. You're sitting right behind them, so you can't see super far down the road. You don't see what hazards are coming up. So again, you are relying on the person in front of you to point that stuff out so you don't slam into a rock or hit a pothole. So same thing.
Or slam into each other.
Yeah. Same thing is in mind when you're on the front. Keep in mind that like everybody behind you can't really see the stuff you see. So like if there's big rocks in the road, glass, like any of that kind of stuff, go ahead and point that out, move around it, like let the people know. There's different groups have different dynamics for this. Like some groups like to just say stuff. They'll say like rock left, and don't point because they like hands on handlebars. Other groups just point and don't talk. There's lots of different dynamics. Just kind of get a feel for the group you're in. But the whole point is in some way let the people around you know there's something coming up that you need to avoid.
Right. Just ideally have that conversation before you get started too. Like, are you somebody who likes to point out everything?
Yeah.
Especially if you're doing directions like right or left, in your brain, you have to switch it. So it's that little split second where you're like, okay, rock left. And then, okay, now I'm going to think left. And do I go left?
Right.
It's kind of like when you're passing somebody, some poor little walker with their dog coming up on your left, and they kind of panic and they go a little bit left and then they go right.
Yeah.
So, just have that. Hopefully you have a comfort within your group so that you know what to expect and communication.
And I think the thing there is also just like communication is never a bad thing. And so like if you're not really like if you're going out to a new group ride, like an established group ride that always meets at this time and place, and you don't know how they do it, like err on the safe side, like point something out and say something. And then like as you're riding along, you may see, hey, everybody just points stuff out and doesn't talk. And then you can kind of back off a little bit. But it's much better to like over communicate to like road hazards than to not point it out and get yelled at.
Yes. That's and we're going to talk about some of that stuff later too.
Yeah.
So but why would we point you make here, gaps less than half a wheel length, why is that important?
Yeah, so what we see is the closer you are to somebody, so if you can like essentially be right on their wheel without actually like touching them, like we're talking, within like an inch or two.
And you should actually be able to touch wheels and not get in trouble. We're going to go over that later.
Yes, we will. Yeah. But the closer you are, the more efficient it is, the more benefit you get from drafting them. So as you start to like widen that gap between you and the person in front of you, more wind is getting in there, there's more turbulent air, and it's just less efficient. I think you get some benefit up to like 3 bike lengths, but it's very minimal at that point. Yep. And then the person behind you gets even less. So you really just want to keep it tight for the purposes of efficiency. But then the second piece of that is also cars passing and stuff. Like the tighter the group can be, the less of an impact you have on like surrounding traffic.
Yes. The more car-like you are in that pace line, the more predictable you are to other vehicles around you. So.
And that definitely takes some getting used to. It's like if you're not used to riding in a group, you're not going to go out into a group and ride like touching somebody's tire. So like my biggest thing is like if you haven't ridden in a group before, or you have a training partner that you go out with, the two of you just practice drafting each other, and just see like have them say like just tell the person, hey, go like be as steady as you can, and let's go out on this straight road and just stay as steady as you can, and I'm gonna get behind you and just see how close I can get to you, and just work your way up, stay comfortable, and just like get used to being there and like reacting, and the piece of this is going to be if you're on a tri-bike, if the person in front of you slows down, hits their brakes, whatever, which you shouldn't do if people are drafting you, try not to slam on brakes and do sporadic stuff. Yeah. But if someone does and you're on like a tri-bike, you're not gonna be able to just grab brakes. You're gonna have to like get used to like moving around people.
Yeah. So if there is a gap created, is there a way of communicating that so that the group will hold up? If the intention is that it's a no drop, for example.
So there's kind of a few different ways to kind of handle that. If it's if you're gapping off of the person in front of you because you can't hold that pace anymore, if it's a no drop ride, kind of shouting out, hey guys, I'm getting dropped, letting somebody around you know, or the people behind you, if there's people behind you, kind of like motion, flag them around you, like wave your arm around so that they can kind of fill in that gap for you and you can get on their wheel. Because it's harder to chase down, like close up a gap than it is for someone else that's feeling really good to close it up and you to sit on their wheel. So you can kind of do that. If it's one person surging off the front, again, it's a no drop ride. You can kind of let them do their thing. And when they come back, be like, hey, this is a no drop ride. Just try and keep it smooth. Just, it's a communication courtesy thing, kind of like nipping any issues in the bud, like just catch it early. And you're just looking for everybody to have a good time. You're not trying to be a jerk and tell somebody not to like do their thing. You just, if it's advertised as a no drop ride,
it should be.
It's supposed to be like a smooth, fluid, like easy going thing where everybody just works together.
Yeah. Cool. All right. So hopefully we're working together and being courteous.
Exactly.
So etiquette.
So in the group, you're in close proximity to a lot of different people. You just want to be mindful of that. Like, don't spit on other people. Don't spit next to you.
Can I tell you, not being somebody who's skilled at snot rockets or spitting, I remember being on a ride with a very specific group of people, and I was kind of the outsider. But, it's a big old group of dudes, and, some dude just leans over and snot rockets, and I'm right behind them, like a little courtesy. Yeah. And then it's all over me. I'm like, here's this stranger snot. Yeah. It's literally all over me. So give people a heads up. Like, even like kind of pull out of the Paceline just a little bit. Like, it's just common courtesy.
I mean, that's,
like, I don't want your spit or your sweat or your.
Yeah, I mean, I think, like, put yourself in this position, you know. I mean, I think it's hard because, like, often the people, like, listening to this kind of stuff are not the problem. But just, like, be mindful of it. Like, if you need to spit, like, you need to blow a snot rocket, just look around, make sure there's no one there. And then, like, if you're, like, typically you'll see this in, like, a double Paceline. If you're in a double Paceline, go ahead and just pull out of it a little bit. And then just make sure you, like, point, like, down and away from the group.
Point and shoot.
Yeah, I mean, that's really the biggest thing. And then, like, in the summer, like, a lot of people dump water over their head to try to stay cool and stuff. Don't do it when you're in the middle of the group, because there's going to be all the sweat water that comes out the back of your helmet going in someone's face. Yeah. So just, like, don't be that person. Like, if you need to dump water on yourself, that's fine. Like, we are huge proponents of people staying cool and staying hydrated. We like that. But, like, again, go ahead and pull out of the group, dump the water on yourself, or wait till you're at the back and then dump water on yourself, stuff like that. Yeah, make sure your wrappers from food and stuff are tucked into your jersey pocket. You don't want one of those to.
Or shorts.
Yeah.
I've been known to just, like, tuck it up underneath my.
Yeah, just tuck it securely somewhere. You don't want it to, like, slide out and hit somebody in the face.
Let's protect the earth, y'all. Yeah.
And then riding in a straight line, just, like, that's that I would say it's a basic bike handling skill. You should be able to ride in a fairly straight line. And it becomes extra important in a group because there's other people around you. So you don't want to be, like, swerving all over the place and, like, hit other people.
I find that nice to, even when you're on your own, to practice, just, like, see if you can ride on the white line on the edge of the road and just see how long you can see.
How close
you can stay. Don't make sure it's not a wet day, because then they're really slick. And then practice looking as far out as you can. Practice looking close down. You'll notice that likely when you're closer, you're going to be a little bit more wobbly than when you pull your gaze out a little bit more. But that's a really hard thing, especially, I mean, I'm going to call the women out. Sorry, y'all, because we tend to be a little bit chattier often. Not all the time, but oftentimes women tend to be a little chattier. When your head is moving back and forth and you're, like, speaking to each other, because I know sometimes it's hard to hear with the wind in your ears. So you have to kind of turn your head. This is critical to be able to ride in a straight line, because when your head is turned and your shoulders turn and your hips turn, the bike will move. So, so just make sure you're confident and comfortable that, okay, I'm going to, sometimes if you're going to look to the left and you put your hand on the left thigh, then you're going to be less likely to veer off by moving it. So there's
like having a reference point helps a lot.
Yes. Yeah. So because when your hips and shoulders, everything moves, the bike is going to move and you're going to get squirrely. Yeah. So, you know, the better bike handling skills that you can have and just play with, like like we have a place called the USA Baseball Complex around here, huge parking lots. You can just do circles in there, like find a local high school that's not busy or some place where you can practice some of this stuff on your own or with a small group.
I mean, to that point, like of practicing, like I'm not ashamed to admit it, but like I raced bikes for a long time at like a pretty decent level. And like when I was out on my own, this is something you just, like I would just practice, you know, when you're out riding by yourself, like sometimes you look around for traffic. So like practice doing so and staying in a straight line or like practice reaching for bottles, reaching for food, rooting through your pockets and staying like in a straight line. I mean, because most everybody trains some on their own. So use that time and practice some of these things where you don't have like a group that you're trying to navigate at the same time.
I like training with one other person and riding together and then putting hands on shoulders, handing bottles back and forth. You know, things like that will help you. Even like touching shoulders and being able to be comfortable with that. That's very common if you're getting into like crit racing, road racing. Like that's just totally, that's the norm. You're going to touch.
Those are like, those are very tight groups from the perspective of like, there are actually like people very close to you, especially in like American like crit racing. And so that's like a good skill to practice, but it's just like a good skill to practice for group running in general, because sometimes stuff happens. Like even in a double pace line, if someone like has to avoid something and you're not like paying attention necessarily, they may swerve over and like kind of bump you a little bit. So it's good to have practiced like someone kind of like in the shoulder a little bit,
and not freaking out, just staying relaxed. Another point that I know, this is just etiquette just in general and a safety tip. Back when the Crystal Coast triathlon was going on back earlier this spring, it poured rain and it was not uncommon for people to get like blown over or have flats or have some sort of an issue. oftentimes people are literally sitting in the middle of the road.
Yeah.
That is a huge issue. Like if something does happen, try to get out of the road. If you're changing a flat, like move over, get out of the way of not only other cyclists, but traffic, and, you know, be thinking of your own safety in those, you know, kind of situations. Or like if you drop a bottle, don't just slam on your brakes. Make sure you're aware of the people who are around you so that you can pull over safely and then go get the bottle or whatever, you know.
I think this is like a bigger thing, like just being aware and like conscious and like of other people and like courteous towards other people. I mean, this extends outside of this group riding, but like even like out running, if you're on the greenway, don't just like pull a Yui in the middle of the greenway without looking, because people might be coming and stuff. Yeah. So just like kind of stay aware of like what's around you and like look around. And same thing for the road.
Wildlife too.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had people have deer jump over the wheels, squirrels get caught up. Like, I mean. So
it's just like, hey, look around, and like before you like make any sudden changes, like turns, slamming on brakes, stopping, like anything like that, like look around and see what's there and make sure you're not going to like mess somebody else up or like have somebody mess you up.
Yes. So at the end of the day, it's all about getting fit and having fun.
Yeah.
So any last words?
Yeah, and I think to that point of having fun, like if you go out to a group ride, like the point in riding with other people is to have some like companionship. Mm-hmm. So like be prepared to chat with people, be friendly. You know, if you're having like a really bad, grouchy day and you don't want to talk to people, like a group ride might not be the thing that day. Yeah. You know, like people are going to try and chat with you. So just be prepared to chat with people. Yes. And then I think we have.
Oh.
Yeah. So some of the unspoken rules. So these are ones that I learned over the years that were, you know, not necessarily specifically spoken to you, but you kind of pick up. So like when you're riding in a group, when you stand up, like if there's a hill or something, don't just like stop pedaling and stand up, because when you do that, your bike drifts backwards, and if someone's following closely behind you, you're going to slam into their wheel. You just don't want to wreck people. So that's one of those, just be smooth, stand up smoothly, and keep pressure on the pedals and stuff. The other one is don't half wheel. So that one's a little bit more of a complicated thing, but it's essentially like you want your skewer to be lined up with their skewer. The front of your wheel to be lined up with the front of their wheel. Your handlebar is about even. And that's like, it doesn't have to be perfect. Like no one's going to pull out like a laser pointer and make sure that you're lined up. Yeah, I thought they would, but no one does it. But yeah, it's just really, that one's like a courtesy thing, just because if you're trying to talk to the person next to you, if you're off a little bit, like they can't hear you, you can't hear them. The people behind you then have to be off to stay like in that like optimal area of drafting, and then like nobody can have conversations. And so it's just like a courtesy thing. And then the last one that we kind of hinted at earlier is like, even if you don't know how to change a flat, like that's like a thing you should pick up and learn. Like there's tons of YouTube videos to learn how to change a flat tire. That's a good skill to pick up. But if you don't know how and you haven't gotten around to learning yet, go ahead and get and carry flat repair stuff with you, because even if you don't know how to use it, someone in the group knows how to use it, and they can help you fix your tire without having to like use their supplies that they spent their hard-earned money on. Yeah. So it's just like being a little bit self-sustained.
Yes.
And making it easier for people to help you.
Yes. Yeah. So, and then on the little half wheel, like be careful of wheel overlap too. If you're this person behind and you're just a little, like barely passing the wheel in front of you, and the person in front of you is not necessarily holding the line, holding their line straight. And if they move, if you're behind them and you have that little wheel overlap, you're the one who's screwed. Yeah. Like majorly. Yeah. So,
and that's like a general like safety thing. It's like, you don't want to, it's called wheel overlap. Like Chris said, you don't want to overlap wheels with somebody, because again, if they swerve to miss stuff in the road,
or if they're just talking or just not paying attention, they don't know where you are in relation to them.
And because like bikes typically don't have like mirrors and stuff, and at least not consistently, like not every bike has, you can get a mirror on your bike, but like you don't always have that awareness of what's behind you. And so if you're in front of other people, you want to be courteous of the people behind you, but at the same time, if you are behind someone, it is your responsibility to avoid them, because you can't control other people's actions. So you just want to make sure you're in a good place to not run into them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, flat repair kit, that's huge. And know that bike to bike, it can be different. So I have a lot of athletes who have road bikes and cross bikes and tri bikes, and depending on the shape of the wheel, the type of the tire, whether they're tubeless ready, et cetera, like it is a whole nother ball game. So you need to do that before race day, or just decide like, okay, if I flat, like,
I'll wait for the broom wagon.
Yeah, I'm walking it in. Because I have had that situation where sometimes, you know, if you don't have the thumbs or the appropriate tools to get really like rim tire combinations, sometimes can just be really
very
difficult. So being somebody who changes tires a lot, you know, there's some that just whoop, they just pop right on, and there's some that are just like,
there's some you're going to have a very hard time getting on, but there's also some skills and like tricks to kind of navigate some of that. I know a lot of shops will do like a flat change clinic. I know over at Inside Out, we've been putting together a list to do one. So if you're interested, feel free to like go in there, call over there and say you're interested, put your info in. We're looking to hold one here soon, probably. But even if you don't want to go to one of the clinics, like a lot of bike shops, the mechanic will show you, like if they're not super slammed and busy, like obviously be courteous of their time, but like if you like, and be prepared to bring them like a $5 tip or whatever, just like for their time.
some beer.
Yeah, I mean, like literally, it's just like a thing. It's like being courteous of their time. But like, ask the mechanic, be like, hey, I don't know how to change a flat. Do you mind showing me? And a lot of the times, if they're not busy, like I would say 9.5 out of 10 times, they're more than happy to show you because they want you to have that skill. They like most mechanics want you to be out enjoying riding your bike. They don't want you to be stuck on the side of the road having a miserable experience.
No, yeah, absolutely. And then that can oftentimes lead to like little tricks and tips that you didn't know, or even as a benefit to the particular shop, there might be a particular tool that really helps you that they can sell that's going to benefit you. So everybody kind of wins.
We might just have to do another webinar on this topic, like a pre-recorded one or something that like, so you can get like the close-up of like a tire change.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Because I have so many people who just don't.
But like, even if you know how to do it, like hearing it more often, you pick up little things. I mean, it was years before I like knew it at the level that I do now. So I mean, you just pick stuff up over time, and like the more people you hear it from, the more different ways you get the info. So it may just like click better with you a different way.
I'm a kinesthetic learner. I also worked in a shop, and the way that I learned is I literally, anybody who had a flat tire, kids bikes, adults bikes, I was the one who changed it. Like boom, boom, boom. Like the more you're doing it, the more you're gonna learn, even if it's on the same exact bike. Just do it. Take it out, put it back in, take it out, put it back in, take it out, put it back in. Plus that's also nice if you ride in the rain a lot, like your rims can actually fill with water, and then it's just a good habit so that you drain them and your rim tape doesn't rot. Anyway, so what we got next?
I think we talked about pretty much all of this. Just be smooth and intentional, communicate. Group riding is like a relationship. You just got to communicate with the people around you. And then just pay attention. Just pay attention. Like if you're going out on a group ride, maybe leave the headphones out that day. And just be like, keep in tune. Like try not to zone out on like worrying about like whatever work stuff's going on. Just try to stay in tune with what's going on. And like, you can think about other stuff, but like, make sure you're paying attention and don't run into somebody.
Yes, that's key. I think that's it.
Yeah, that's it.
Cool. So if you guys have any questions or any other topics that you guys want us to cover, whether it be cycling or whether it be running or nutrition or whatever those things may be, leave us some comments below. Hit us up with an email. Be sure to give us a thumbs up if you liked this, and be sure to subscribe as well if you want more videos like this. And then check us out on theenduranceedge.com. Again, this is Michael, and I'm Chris, and we've got some really awesome programs, nutrition programs, metabolic testing, sweat testing, coaching programs. So check us out, and hopefully we have empowered you to be a better performing athlete. So thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.